out here to play. Sound NewsMan leads the way. Independent college sound. Beat conquer to the ground. Richmond choose that 841. WDCE shining sun. Top 3 in the radio race. Sound NewsMan takes first place. Sound NewsMan all week there. Feel the groove everywhere. College spirit makes us proud. Richmond voices sing out loud. Corporate giants shake with fear. Sales beats ring far and near. Students cheer and spread the word. Sales the one you must have heard. From the campus to the town, no one brings the station down. Independent all the way. Sound NewsMan forever stay. Sound NewsMan all week there. Feel the groove everywhere. College spirit makes us proud. Richmond voices sing out loud.
You could accept the fact that the city is headed for a disaster of biblical proportion. What do you mean this Old Testament? Yeah, man. Real wrath of God type stuff. Fire and brimstone coming down from the skies. Rivers and seas boiling. 4 years of darkness, earthquakes, volcanoes. Dead rising from the grave. Human sacrifice, dogs and cats living together. That's hysteria.
Broadcasting live from the WDCE studios out of the University of Richmond, you're listening to WDCE 90.1 FM from the most trusted puppet in media. Reporting since Roswell, I'm Sam NewsMan, and this is SideShow Infotainment. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, season 7, episode 8. And we are very, very excited that you are able to join with us this morning. Where can you find us? Well, that's very easy. At Sam NewsMan. All over social media is where you're going to find us. That's at Sam NewsMan. All over social media is where you will find us. Also, we are broadcasting once again, WDCE 90.1 FM. Yes, that's a real radio microphone, ladies and gentlemen, broadcasting on an FM signal here locally in Richmond, Virginia. And a couple of other ways, if you're not here locally, you can always go to WDCE.org or WDCE.net. There is a stream button, and then that'll take you to Live 365. You can also download the Live 365 app. Just go to your app store, download the Live 365 app, search WDCE, and you'll be able to listen to the show. But you might be thinking, well, Sam, why would I want to listen to the show as opposed to just watching it here? Well, the reason why is because it is Saturday morning, and you might be busy. You might have things to do. You might have places to go. And so I'm not going to sit there and say, hey, you know what? You just have to stare at my beautiful puppet face, even though I know that you would want to. I mean, because it is quite a beautiful puppet face, but it just allows you to continue to hear my beautiful puppet voice as you go about your day and doing the things that you need to do. So it has been an interesting week, ladies and gentlemen. I'm looking outside right now. Beautiful sunny campus here. Like I said, the University of Richmond here in Richmond, Virginia. Hope it's sunny where you are. If it's not, well, I'm sorry about that. Not really, though, because I love the rain myself. Not me. I'm not getting in the rain. That would just mess up my felt. And I don't want that to happen. Felt gets all nasty and ugh. No, I'm not. That's not going to happen. But I do hope that everyone out there has had a wonderful week. And be prepared to have a wonderful weekend. It is a state of mind, if you will. You might be sitting there thinking, well, hey, I'm just in a funk. Well, shake off the funk. Happiness is a choice. Joy is a state of being. I say that all the time. Yeah. You are allowed to be happy. However, it is a choice. It's something that it's your own personal switch that you have. All you got to do is flip that switch and say, hey, you know what? Forget all the bad stuff that has happened. I am going to choose to be happy. But then I sit there and tell you that joy is a state of being. Joy comes from within, ladies and gentlemen. And it is, like I said, being a state of being. When you operate in joy, there is some magic that does happen. That joy frequency ends up spilling out to everyone else around you. All the negativity that might be around, whether it be on the news, whether it be, just in your own personal life, that joyfulness, the joy that is within your being has the ability to disrupt the frequency of negativity, slap it down, if you will, and then you are allowed to then have everyone around you level up. Level up because why? Because you have joy. So joy is a state of being. Happiness is a choice. I hope you are happy. Click the switch if you're not. And like I said, walk in joy and it will affect others. As far as this little here radio program goes, like I said, it is a small little 8-mile signal broadcasting out of the University of Richmond. And one of the interesting things is that we started this show 7 years ago. How did it start? Well, we started in drive time, ladies and gentlemen. It was a drive time show, and I only had a small part back in those early days. I would come on at the very end, and I would just talk about news, a little bit of news items here and there at the end of the show. My producer, Citizen Germ, over there on the other side of the glass, was the one who was hosting the show. Now it's interesting. Now he doesn't host the show. And we won't turn on his microphone because nothing is worse than hearing a producer start talking in the middle of a show. In fact, it's like nails on a chalkboard, specifically when the producers think that they're great and that they're all wonderful and everything that they have to say is stuff that people want to hear. Because let's just face it, ladies and gentlemen, that's not the case. Nothing is worse. Nothing is more like nails on a chalkboard than hearing a producer just start talking in the middle of a show that's not theirs. Just continue to sit back behind the glass, push the buttons, move the sliders, and keep your mouth shut. Don't turn on your microphone. In fact, I'm the one that has the power of the microphone over here because it would just derail everything. Like nothing derails a show more than a producer coming in and be like, well, hey, this is what I have to say about it. And this is what, this is my thought. And I'm just so smart. I'm so smart. And because and it's like, no, you're not. You're not. In fact, you lack self-awareness. Your voice is like nails on a chalkboard, and nobody wants to hear you say anything. If they did, they would have given you your own show. But in fact, what happens is they give the show to the people who matter. Like for me, I'm the one that's now hosting the show. But like I said, we did start off on Thursdays. It was drive time. And then one day, Lord Blanket took over I'm sorry, not Lord Blanket. The board got screwy. Listen, there's no such thing as a Lord Blanket. And so, there's not. What are you guys snickering back over there? There's no such thing as a Lord Blanket. No, so it was just a disruption. Just a simple disruption where all of a sudden cartoon themes and video game themes, sitcom themes, movie themes, wrestling themes, all of those just started playing. But it was this particular day when when the board was disrupted, that all of a sudden there was cartoon themes coming through the speakers and the phone lines started to just blow up, ladies and gentlemen. Now, not literally blow up. That's a figure of speech. What I mean by that is that the phone line started going bananas. And no, not actual bananas. That's another figure of speech. No, so what happens is the phone started ringing off the hook. And we started getting requests. We started playing a few cartoon themes. And then everybody else started calling in and saying, hey, can you play this cartoon theme? Can you play that cartoon theme? Can you play this? Can you play that? And all of a sudden, I'm sitting there thinking, well, hey, this might be a little something that we can work with here. So then after just that one summer, broadcasting on Thursday evenings during the drive time hour, we decided to move the show to Saturday morning. Now, in those early years, it was very, very early in the morning. In fact, I think that, when did it start? It started at, I think we started at 9 first. And then after a semester or so, we got bumped. We got bumped because somebody was like, oh, well, this person wants to have a show at 9 o'clock because they were a student. Little did they know that my producer was a student at the same time. But we just decided, okay, let's just do what we need to do. So we moved the show to 7 a.m. Now, those were the early days of the show at the 7 a.m. once we moved it. So it was we were only on, I think, from 9 to 11 for one semester. Then we got bumped from 7 to 9. Now, like I said, those were some really rough mornings. However, we stayed the course, ladies and gentlemen, and eventually we got our time slot back at 9 o'clock. And since then, we've been running from 9, and then we added a third hour. We were running from 9 a.m. to noon. And we've been doing that pretty much ever since. So the last 3 or 4 years or so, maybe four years. About the last 4 years plus, we've been doing the 3-hour show. Now, lately, we've been coming in at about 9:30-ish, starting to play songs and everything like that. We did used to do multiple video segments, but through the course of the year, we've just decided to really pull back and say, well, hey, how can we really focus this show and continue to set the standard and raise the bar? Well, what we've done is that we now do the video only segment, or not video only, well, it's video and radio. But the video segments start at 11:05-ish. Now, I know today we started at 11:15 because we were jamming it out with some jams and some songs prior to us starting off the show. But we do turn on the Sam Cams at Sam Newsman all over social media. That's Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and X. Also, we are streaming now mirrored. That stream is mirrored on Exertus's channel. That's Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and X from Exertus. Tip of the cap from Exertus. We have been doing this Sam the Vote-a-thon over the last several weeks. And I want to thank Exertus for that. Also, tip of the cap to Jordan, our producer, our online producer. Not the one that's here, but our online producer over on YouTube for those video streams. So tip of the cap to Jordan. Jordan, you've been such a great help. And definitely want to thank you, give you some credit there. Now, like I said, we have been doing this show for 7 years. And over the course of 7 years, we have slowly been able to get the eye of the public on this here little radio program. I say radio and video now at this point. But what's really interesting is about, 3 years ago, we ended up making the top 5 of what is called the Best of Richmond. The Best of Richmond is an award. It's a whole award, a set of awards that is brought to you by the Richmond Times-Dispatch. The Richmond Times-Dispatch being the newspaper of record here in Central Virginia. And every year they do this, the Best of Richmond award, where they highlight the best restaurants, the best law firms, the best doctors, the best Indian chiefs, whatever, it doesn't matter. Whatever it is, there is the best of something. And one of the categories in the Best of Richmond is Best Morning Radio Show. Now, about 4 years ago, we ended up breaking the top 5. So what happens here, ladies and gentlemen, is around May, I'm sorry. In May, there's this nomination round. This nomination round is the difficult part. It is probably the hardest part of the Best of Richmond, and that's where you nominate different radio shows, different programs to move on to the next round, which is the voting round. And so 4 years ago, 4 years ago, we ended up making the top 5. And that was a big deal because we were just a small little show here on this small little 8-mile signal, breaking into the top 5 with a bunch of corporate radio shows. Now, some of these shows were syndicated, broadcasting all over the country, and we ended up making the top 5. Now, interesting, 2 years ago, so maybe that was 3 years ago, right? Well, 2 years ago, I don't know, all the numbers all of a sudden just get jumbled. But 2 years ago, what happened is that we ended up making the top 3. And that, ladies and gentlemen, was something that really ended up taking the show up to another level. Now, at the time, nobody really gave us any credit. There was a big radio show, the big political talk radio show that ended up getting first. And then a major syndicated radio show, a rock-based, I believe, morning show. A bunch of yuckles and chuckles and, fart jokes and whatever, toilet humor and all that stuff. They ended up getting second place, but they'd been around for about 20 plus years. 20 plus years, this syndicated radio show ended up being, it was around here, very popular, still on the radio to this day. But they were second place and we ended up getting third. Once again, though, nobody gave us credit. Nobody said they still just looked at us, thought it was maybe just a fluke. Oh, well, the little puppet got third place. Oh, isn't that cute? Oh, so adorable. The puppet got third place. Yeah, well, it doesn't matter. But then last year, ladies and gentlemen, you know what? Something happened. Is that we ended up having one of the best years in terms of our success. And in the process, last year for the Best of Richmond, we ended up getting second place. What is very interesting is that the show that got second, the nationally syndicated show, ended up getting third. So it was at that point where I guess the advertisers, the marketers, and the people in radio land, and we're talking corporate radio land, ladies and gentlemen. These are the people who, have they're just all high and mighty. They think that they know what's best, and they think, oh, well, we know the business and the business and the business because this is the business. Well, here is the business, ladies and gentlemen, is that we knocked out that 20 plus year syndicated radio show from its second place perch. Now, the show that ended up being first was the same one that was first the year before. And so, but that really wasn't the big key. The key was knocking off that syndicated radio show. Because, ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to tell you that this year, that syndicated radio show did not even make the top 5. That's right. They did not even make the top 5. So when the nomination round was going on back in May, that radio show was nowhere to be found. Because here's the reality of the situation. Once you get beaten by a puppet, you can't come back. You can't come back. Now, listen, you cannot come back after losing to a puppet, specifically a puppet on a small little 8-mile signal out of the University of Richmond, a little college radio. Oh, it's just a college radio show. And, I hear that all the time, too. People sit there and they say, oh, well, it's just college radio. It doesn't matter. Well, obviously, it does matter because that syndicated show, not only did it get knocked off the list, it didn't even make the top 5 this year. So who's the joke on now, right? Well, now that leads us, ladies and gentlemen, to this year. That's a radio show that was number 1 for the last, it wasn't just the last 2 years. It's probably been the best radio show for the last 5 years or so, I believe. Well, that was done by it was done by my buddy, old Uncle John Reed. That's right. Now, John Reed is a good friend of mine. Now, so I was never really at war against old Uncle John. Of course, I didn't think I would ever get, past John either because John's very popular. He's a very popular guy. He was also a news reporter here at one of the local affiliate stations for years. But then he traveled the world, did a whole bunch of stuff, worked in Washington, D.C., worked in the Senate, went and traveled abroad, worked as communications directors and stuff like that all over the world. Came back to Richmond and started doing the morning radio show on the political radio station. But several years ago, I connected with John, and John was always really friendly to me. Always would give me opportunities to chat with him and talk with him at a little event called Politics and Pints, where I ended up crashing it back in 2018. Now, this was very interesting because at the time, once again, all those radio big shots and big wigs sat there and just looked at me, scoffed at me, and said, "Oh, well, this is silly. This is just a gimmick. This is just a joke." And they didn't want to give us any credit. Oh, look at the little puppet. Isn't it so cute? But what's really interesting is that over the course of time, thanks to John and my buddy old Uncle Jeff Katz did the afternoon show for the political talk radio station here locally. And they would give me opportunities to interview them at this Politics and Pints events, which I continue to crash for several years. Even after COVID, when there was a break in some of the events, I still showed up and was able to get one or two more interviews from both of them. Very, very generous. And so I do want to give a tip of the cap to old Uncle Jeff, but also old Uncle John. So Uncle John no longer has that radio show. No longer has the radio show in the morning. But I will say, tip of the cap to old Uncle Rich Herrera, now is the person who has that show. Now, what's very interesting, though, is that John, because he left, you know what he did? He ended up running for lieutenant governor. So right now he's in the middle of a campaign running for lieutenant governor for the state of Virginia. But so what happened there at that point, though, it left a major vacuum of who would be the #1 morning radio show by the Richmond Times-Dispatch for this Best of Richmond competition. And well, ladies and gentlemen, because John no longer has that morning radio show, what it did is it provided us the inside lane, if you will, for allowing us to possibly become the best morning radio show according to the Richmond Times-Dispatch and you, the listeners and the readers of said publication. What's really great about that is that we only have today and tomorrow left for you to vote. You might be saying, well, Sam, I'm just now hearing about it now. If you're just hearing about it now, shame on you, because we've been doing this now for the last 18 days as we've been going through this. But what I need you to do is that I need you to text the number 127. That's 1-272-804-430-5505. That's 1-272-804-430-5505. If you're watching us on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and X, there's a little ticker going down there at the bottom of the screen telling you exactly what to do. The last couple of years, we've been calling this hashtag Sam the Vote. That's right, a little old wink and a nod to the baby oil campaign of Diddy's Rock the Vote. Baby oil. No, but so hashtag Sam the Vote. We've been doing this the last couple of years, and like I said, 2 years ago we were 3rd place. Last year we were 2nd place. And with your support, with you texting that little number 1-272-804-430-5505, we'll be able to take it home this year and possibly win Best Morning Radio Show. There's another way, of course, you can go to the website, go.richmond.com/thebest, go.richmond.com/thebest. Scroll down to entertainment, click on entertainment, then you scroll down, you'll see Best Local Morning Radio Show. Click on that, and you'll see my name, Sam NewsMan, WDCE, and that will allow you to vote with not only your email, not only with your phone, but also your email. So you have 2 votes a day. 2 votes a day. Now, in the process, what I need you to do is tell everybody else in your family. specifically if they do have a cell phone, that they need to just text 127 to 804 430 5505 on their cell phone. Then when you go to work, talk to everybody that you work with, all your fellow employees, and say, hey, listen, I need you to text that number 127 to 804 430 5505. And then they might look at you and say, well, what's this all about? Well, we've been saying over the last couple of weeks that when you text 127, you have the ability to hack the planet. Hack the planet for what? Hack the planet for broadcast history. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, because when you text that number, you are sowing the seeds of good fortune to this radio show and to myself, for us as this little tiny independent show that everyone thought was a joke. Everyone did not take us seriously. And then what it'll do is that it'll show all of the corporations and the corporate media people, all the bigwigs who think that they know everything, still getting paid ridiculous amounts of money and all of that garbage, that we, this small little show, really is the real talent. It is the real show. And it is the real thing that is happening when it comes to the future of broadcast history. Now, I've been looking around seeing that AI, I saw this past week where Microsoft, I believe, had a list of some of the top jobs that are at risk from being taken over by AI. And number 10 from the top was broadcast announcers and radio DJs. So yes, ladies and gentlemen, broadcasting in terms of radio shows, television shows, is up there close to the top of the list when it comes to industries that will be disrupted by AI. However, the difference between us and all of those humans that want to sit there and, blab and whatever on the microphone, difference is that I'm actually a real media puppet. And I always hear this thing where, there's media puppets and there's political puppets. And, I could get upset. I could be very upset and say, you know what, I take that personally. But I don't. I don't take it personally. Because all it is that, what is the old adage? Something that imitation is the best form of flattery. Because you have all these humans that are sitting there, parading around as media puppets and political puppets. But here I am, a real media puppet on the verge of broadcast history. And that is knocking off all of these other radio shows and media personalities. Now, we did win. Well, we didn't win, but we placed in the top 3 a few months ago for the Best of Richmond by Style magazine. It's a local magazine here for culture and everything like that. But we ended up making the top 3 for that. For what? For Best Media Personality. So not only are we an award-winning radio show, but at this point, ladies and gentlemen, you are listening to an award-winning media broadcaster and media personality. And that was, so when I sit there and say that, you might sit there and think, oh, well, Sam's just, puffing himself up. And yes, of course I am. But there is truth behind that, ladies and gentlemen. I am one of the best media personalities. Now we're not talking about the guys that read teleprompters and things like that. No, we knocked all of them off. Yeah, they all got bumped from the list. And here my little old puppet self has knocked them off the list. And so now I'm one of the best media personalities here in Richmond, Virginia. And as we make our way to these last 2 days, today and tomorrow, we're on the verge of becoming the best morning radio show in all of Central Virginia. Now, what's really interesting about this is that you, like I said, have a place. And you can be a part of that broadcast history. It's very, very simple. All you have to do is text 127 to 804 430 5505. That's 127 to 804 430 5505. You want to do that today and tomorrow on any and every cell phone you can get your hands on. It's the easiest way to do it. And like I said, in the process, we might end up winning. And you know, with that being said, one of the things that we can sit there and tell you is that if we do end up getting the award, what you can do, ladies and gentlemen, is you can look at that award and know that you took part of broadcast history by voting for me, voting for this show. And then you can sit there and tell all of your friends, hey, I was there when Sam ended up winning. I was there when all the corporate bigwigs and all the media people just scoffed at Sam, thought he was just a joke, thought he was just a gimmick, but ends up knocking off syndicated radio show host and all the corporate shows that make money, ladies and gentlemen, by doing what? Selling their soul for advertising, which, you know, I'm definitely not opposed to that. But the reality is that all of these other shows are usually Monday through Friday shows, sometimes 3 or 4 hours a day. And here we are on the verge of knocking them all off the perch by just having this small little radio show that now I'm only broadcasting my own beautiful puppet face for an hour. You know, so here I am working 1 day a week here at a radio station, knocking off all the corporate shows that end up broadcasting Monday through Friday. Work smarter, not harder. That is the key. The other key is the fact that I guess that all at this point, none of these other shows really know how to market themselves to begin with. They probably have a whole bunch of advertising teams and everything like that that are all behind them, sitting there, you know, selling, you know, advertising for this local thing and that local thing. But the reality is that they can't even market themselves to end up winning an award at this point. And here we are just doing it all by ourselves. Well, with your help, of course. And so I just want to thank everyone over the last 18 days who have voted for this particular program. So what does this say? Hold on, let me see here. What is this? It says something. Let me see. This says, yeah. Somebody sit there and said, then they'll accuse you of working like a white man, Sam. Do less, earn more. Oh man, that's funny. That's funny. No, well, it's just really interesting. And like I said, it has been quite a journey, specifically when people just turned their nose up to us and thought, oh, well, it's just a puppet. It doesn't matter. Oh, well, it's just a gimmick. It doesn't matter. And here we are, me, a real award-winning media puppet, on the verge of knocking off all of those shows that are corporately backed, corporately funded, advertising teams sitting there going around getting advertising dollars Monday through Friday. And here this little show broadcasting out of a small little signal out of the University of Richmond college radio ends up knocking them all off. And like I said, ladies and gentlemen, you can have a part in that when you text the code 127, the number 127 to 804-430-5505. 127, ladies and gentlemen, is the key to hack the planet for broadcast history. Now, I do want to say, number one, thank you once again for everyone who has voted so far. Continue to vote today and tomorrow. Tell all your friends. But over the next couple of weeks, we will be taking our August sabbatical. So for the next 4 weeks, we are not going to be here on Saturday morning. So if we are, it will be something random and it won't be here from the station if we decide to do it. But the last couple of weeks have been really, well, I'm not going to say they've been rough because they haven't been rough, but we've been working. We've been doing a show almost every night on YouTube around 10 o'clock as we continue to Sam the Vote, hashtag Sam the Vote. We call it the Sam the Vote-a-thon. And while we do have one more scheduled, I believe for Sunday, I'm not really sure. We might just cancel that altogether. I'm tired, ladies and gentlemen. I'm tired of continuing just to set the standard and raise the bar. Not that I'm going to stop setting the standard and raising the bar. Of course, I still will. But it's time sometimes you just have to take a step back and say, hey, I need a break. And you should probably do that with yourselves, ladies and gentlemen. You know, the rigmaroles, is that how you say it? The rigorous ups and downs of life, if you will, can eventually catch up to you. And the last thing you want to get is complete burnout. And I will say, ladies and gentlemen, as we continue to set the standard and raise the bar, we are on that verge of burnout. So this is usually when it happens, though, right after this Best of Richmond. So, which is the reason why over the last couple of years, we have taken August, a couple of weeks off in August and stuff. But this year, we're taking the next 4 weekends off. And our goal is to come back on September the 6th, starting at 11 a.m. But we might be here sooner, that. But we're just working out some logistics and things like that. And we do plan on doing a YouTube show, maybe on a bi-weekly basis. But there will be more information about that coming in the fall. I don't want to sit there and say too much as we're still working on things behind the scenes. We call that a tease, ladies and gentlemen, in the business. That is a tease that there is more to come. So just continue to remain with us. Just follow us at Sam Newsman all over social media. That's at Sam Newsman all over social media. That's where you will find us. Let me see here. Oh, yes. And one last thing. We sit there every single week. Usually I'm reading the news and I'm talking about news of the day. And there has been a lot of news lately that has been confusing. A lot of people, it's been upsetting. And I'm just here to tell you right now, ladies and gentlemen, if you are taking the news and allowing it to affect your own personal joy and happiness, then you just need to stop. You need to stop. You need to pump the brakes and recognize that the people around you, your friends, your family. I see Michelle in the chat. She says, we are family. We are family. And what's really interesting about this is that when you think about your family, the loved ones in your life, friends and family, ladies and gentlemen, that's really what matters. And so I do want to leave you with a few quotes here by our old friend, old Uncle Fred Rogers. But when you think about everything that happens in your life, kind of what's going on, and there are ups and downs, smiles and frowns, poet and I know it. But one of the things you need to just sit there and focus on are the people in your life. The people in your life that bring you joy. And the reason why I say that is because, well, nothing is guaranteed. And so as you go through this weekend, next weekend, and even during the week, I want you to think about your friends. I want you to think about your family. And I want you to think about the blessings in your life. Because we all sometimes get too busy. We take things for granted. And we take the people in our lives for granted. Not knowing, once again, that nothing is guaranteed. So, if you do have friends and you do have family members, maybe you have people in your life that you have not talked to in a while. Maybe you had a falling out with somebody. Maybe you're no longer friends with a person that you were great friends with before. I challenge you to maybe reach out to them. Now, you might end up, getting a cold shoulder. They may not answer your text. They may not answer your call. But at least you can go to bed at night knowing that, hey, listen, we might have had a bit of a falling out, but at least I tried. And you can sleep well at night knowing that you tried. And as you go through life, what you need to do is just recognize that we have so much to be grateful for every single day. And most importantly, and that is being with the people in our lives. And I'm telling you right now, if you do make some time for others and you're able to hang out with them, your friends or your family, you won't regret it. And in fact, it will be time well spent. I wish you the kind of life's work in which you can use the greatest part of who you are. And I wish you the kind of life's love that will enhance all that you do, as well as all that you are. Being kind means responding to the needs of others. And people can be kind, no matter how old or how young we are. Follow me at Sam Newsman all over social media. Like I said, we will be taking a break over the next couple of weeks. You have 2 more days left for hashtag Sam the Vote by texting 127 to 804-430-5505. And when you do that, just know that you have the ability to hack the planet. Hack the planet for what? For broadcast history. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we'll leave you as we always do with the little jingle. Make sure you are listening to WDCE.net, WDCE.org. Download the Live 365 app. Search WDCE and you'll be able to listen to Citizen Germ's final segment of the show today. A little something that we have deemed our little Mr. Rogers segment. But it's radio only. So make sure you're listening to us on the radio so you'll be able to hear Citizen Germ close out the show. As for myself, I'll close it out with the little jingle that I wrote back during the 2016 campaign for president. Well, I wasn't running for president. I was just saying for the presidential campaign. This song is about 9 years old then now, right? So about 9 years old. This show is about 7 years old. Well, it is over 7 years old. So I've been doing this for 7 years. Wow. Man, has the time flown by. But ladies and gentlemen, once again, I thank you for listening to the show, being a part of the show. Shout out to everyone in the chat. Once again, continue to follow me at Sam Newsman all over social media. Go to WDCE.org, WDCE.net to listen to the final segment of this show today. And with that, oh, through political correctness, we can't see life as it may be. That world hidden from you and me. I just laugh and start to sing. Ha 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 ha. It's SideShow Infotainment. Politicians and news anchors. And talking points that make my eardrums bleed. Oh, that Game of Thrones is what they play. A house of cards just day by day. Voters losing every way. It's just like I always say. It's SideShow Infotainment. Politicians and news anchors. and talking points that make my eardrums bleed. Yeah. Donald Trump's got quite the past, with Epstein's files all up his ass. It's all a hoax. Oh, he says so fast. But we all know it's the ruling elite, ladies and gentlemen, that just keep laughing last. Oh, it's SideShow, Infotainment, politicians and news anchors, and talking points that make my eardrums bleed. The most trusted puppet in media is me. Reporting since Roswell, I'm Sam, Newsman.